Welcome back to Casuals and Counters podcast every Monday with myself, Will from Casuals Corner MMA, and Leo from Leo Cooper's MMA on Instagram and YouTube. And today we've got a couple of topics of conversation to dice up, but
just a couple.
First and foremost, I had a little sip just before we started, and I usually have my standard iced coffee, which is Taylor's from Harrogate,
with the chocolate,
the ground coffee, with the Noops Cocoa Flakes, 100%. This is a lot more basic, bitch. This is a Costa.
That's more like me, man.
Latte in a can.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know what? I'd be happy with that. I'm a simple man.
It does a job. It does a job. It's a little bit. Lattes are a little bit on the milky side for me. I think myself 5 years ago I would have liked a latte, but now I'm just getting hairs on my chest. Yeah.
Okay.
I like a strong roast. I like a strong roast and a dark chocolate with bitterness. I don't even like.
The thing is, though, like,
I start tasting sweetness and going. I'm like, meh. Weird.
Okay, I might have to take you off on that. I want to try that.
I think I'm getting old.
Maybe
matured.
We're all getting old, man.
Maybe just more of a wank.
I was actually going to ask you, without doxing you in a weird way, what was
where was I?
What was that lovely little spot you were in last night?
Without doxing me. No, you're good. I did think you was going to ask this. I was in my head. I was thinking.
I know. I wanted to, but I'll save it for the pod.
No,
you always like save it for the pod. So
that's a fair question. Yeah, we literally don't speak outside of certain levels of conversation because we say, all right, okay, we've got to save this for Sunday. So a friend of mine had a shoot in London, a photography shoot, and so I went down there. It was in Canary Wharf to take some shots as well, just in Canary Wharf, and then obviously I watched the fights there as well, but just fortunately had a very beautiful skyline view of the entirety of London. It was incredible. It really was incredible, and it made me realise, because at times I can be hard on London and I can be cold and dismissive and turn my back on her, but I need to tell her I love her every now and again, because it's an incredible city. And when I did a little bit of travelling recently, it was only when I saw the excitement and the glimmer in people's eyes when they said they're going there or going back there, I started to realise, you know what, I am lucky. I am blessed that I get to live in this city. So to appreciate that first and foremost more, because there is so much to do. There's so much diversity, culture, food, free things to do, museums, theatres, anything you could possibly want in any niche is there for you. So, yeah, so I got to watch the fight there, which was fun, but that's a better place than any to jump straight into it. So you take the lead. You take the lead. I'm not even going to say anything. You take the lead.
Well, I will say, I was saying last week how excited I was to see Jake Matthews get back in there, because I just love watching him fight. Always game as hell. And he's always got that sort of freak athleticism. He's always been like, and he's been in the game for a long time. Yeah, Australian, yeah. And it was a beautiful, you're not wrong. It was a beautiful performance, though. It really was. I was very, very happy. I mean, you could tell that body work was unbelievable. Because those front kicks to the liver, along with that beautiful just the left hook to the body as well. Just chaining everything together. And I was going to ask, what was your opinion on that low blow? There was a lot of discourse about it.
I have a very strong opinion on it.
I'm curious to see what you're going to say.
I've got the strongest opinion on it, because it's actually annoyed me.
Hit me with it.
It's annoyed me, and I know where you're going to go with it as well. I can just hear the tone. I can hear the tonality of your voice where you're going to go with it. Because I heard all of the internet going off about this, and I feel passionately about this because I feel like it's so obvious. It's winding me up that everyone's saying this. We all know. Speaking objectively, right, that kick, the ball of his foot landed in his stomach. Yes, 100%. Of course it did. That's not up for debate. I mean, that's very, very clear. Undoubtedly, I've not heard one person argue that the heel didn't also land in the cup. My point to this is, sometimes the full blows are not actually that bad. If you want to get specific and technical, the cup actually sort of goes central on impact and distributes it all, and you don't really get a concentrated level of pain. Whereas when you get a little glance or a little brush and it just confuses things, they are the most painful. So when that heel just sort of clipped the cup and went upwards and I got that sort of like jolt in action, I thought there is absolutely all the chance in the world that is seriously painful.
Right, so
and I don't really know why it was such a debate.
We're on the same page. Yeah, I
Right.
know. All right, that's good.
Okay.
I was about to say, I thought we were about to have a bit of discourse there, but no, I completely agree with you. There was like Joe
Am I
Rogan
wrong?
was just like, no, because Rogan was like slagging him off, and I was like,
Psychopath.
what are you waffling about? That was quite clearly, like at least partially on the cup. I was like, that's gonna hurt, man.
But he acknowledged it landed.
Yeah.
But he was just saying because that other bit landed first and to the stomach, that it wasn't a low blow.
I don't know.
That's not going to take someone's pain away when the box is just rattled and it's just caught you nice and good. That is not taking that pain away from the core, the pit of your stomach while you're curled up on the floor thinking, I don't know how to erase this pain right now. Stamping my legs isn't working. I've got 20,000 people booing and screaming at me.
On his debut as well.
And Joe Rogan's behind him in the booth as well. If you actually look at where he was in the cage, Joe Rogan's behind him, just abusing him. And he's in all of this pain. I guarantee it, because let's be honest. He was obviously losing that fight. I wasn't saying he was losing that fight.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
At no point was he discouraged or looked gassed necessarily and towards the very, very end. But there was no point where he looked like he wanted to quit or wanted out of the fight. So it didn't even play into what we'd been seeing in the fight. He'd taken it on 10 days' notice odd. Yeah. So he was obviously a game opponent. He came on his debut to make a show. He wasn't going out like that. I don't know. I think people rushed to conclude that very quickly, which was, I don't know, bizarre.
I completely agree.
But beautiful. As you mentioned the body, I'm so glad you mentioned those body shots.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
They were legitimately one of my favourite things to watch all
that whole
night.
Really. Yeah,
actually,
I mean, Jake Matthews is that guy on the feet. He really is underrated. I think it's just, again, it's a product of just still young guy. He's had so much experience, but he's still young, yet to really hit his prime. And I think there's a lot of big things coming for him. And I'm almost waiting for that moment where that sort of switch hits. Yeah, and there's almost that moment where he hits that switch and he just goes on a run, because someone like him, just the way you watch him fight, he fights at such a higher level than a lot of the guys he's going against. Like, you can just see that. So I it's almost like I don't really know what there is to fix. I mean, I'm not a coach, so I don't know, but it's almost like maybe I'm missing something, but he seems to have all the tools to go far. I hope we can see that.
No, you hit a really good point, because it triggered a thought I had yesterday, actually, when I was watching Jake Matthews, because you're right, he has so many skills and he's so talented. But what we have to remember is he's 28 years of age and he came into the organisation at 19 years of age.
Wild. Crazy.
At 19 years of age. So when you was leaving university or just sort of starting uni or leaving college or sixth form or whatever it was, he was going into the UFC and fighting grown men that are the hardest people in the world. So you're going to have trials and tribulations naturally, and you're going to have bumps along the road. But one thing that I can see with Jake Matthews now is he's just starting to understand his capabilities. He's just culminating a decade's worth of experience in the cage. And I think nowadays as well, you're going to have people with tighter records. I don't think they're going to be as wide as we've seen them before, because the level of mixed martial arts is getting so good, and the level of the guys in the UFC are getting so good in terms of being well-rounded, being good athletes, having good strength and conditioning, good wrestling and anti-wrestling, all these different things. I think the level's just getting so good now. You're going to see people with less winning records, if that makes sense, just because of the people they're fighting. So I think not only is he starting to put in together in his sort of prime years, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, these are the sort of years where, like you said, you want to start putting a run together and start doing good things. But outboxing Andre Fialho,
that's very good, isn't it?
For those who know, it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one, Fialho. But for those who know, the Portuguese welterweight is a really, really skillful boxer. A seriously skillful boxer and really good boxing pedigree. And he went out there and he had a boxing match and he looked really good. And last night he looked really good, because you don't see very often people using that left hook to the body in mixed martial arts. And it's one of my favourite shots to watch. You see Jack Della Maddalena do it.
Yep,
Stipe does it. Alex Pereira does it nicely.
But
there's not a ton of people, because not only is it not easy to get, but also it leaves you a little bit vulnerable. So, yeah, that was super impressive from what would you like to see next for him? Give me an opponent quickly.
I don't know. I can't. Honestly, I think maybe I'm not. I can't think on the top of my head, but I'd like to see him have a crack at the top 15. Maybe in a couple fights. No, maybe not now. Maybe one more fight. I think he's just one of those. He deserves that. I think he deserves that shot. So I don't know. I'd like to see it. Just a step up. I couldn't give you a name in particular unless you've got any good ones, but yeah, just a step up. Really, that's what a guy like him really needs. Because I think fighting, just circling that sort of, lower echelons of the division. Guys making their debuts or maybe have 1 or 2 fights. Not much experience in the Premier promotion. I think he needs a guy with a bit more experience. Throw it with me.
Got a good idea. Really good idea. Firstly, I'll say the name. Okay. Michael Chiesa. We'll come on to it in a second.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a great one.
Makes exact sense. Michael Chiesa coming off that loss to a huge name like Kevin Holland. Welterweight division, 15th ranking. It all makes sense, 100%. I think maybe even after one more, maybe he doesn't deserve that quite yet. I do want to say, before we get on to the next fight, the welterweight division is becoming one of the deepest shark-infested waters there are in the UFC. You have a look at people like Morales, Ian Gary, Hamzat Chimaev, Rachmanov. You've got Kelvin Gastelum being dropped into the mix. And we're not even mentioning the actual champion and just below that. I'm talking about surging talent at welterweight. Jack Della Maddalena that we know has just fought as well. 170 pounds is becoming a very, very scary division with skillful guys that can seemingly do it all. And it's getting very, very problematic, which moves us into our next fight, which on record, I've said this man's going to be a problem as soon as he dropped down. And he has dropped down. And once again, Kevin Holland looked fantastic.
Mate, we got it spot on. I was watching it last night. I was watching it with my brother, right? So he's not big on the UFC too much, but he was like, he enjoys it, but he's not like a hardcore fan at all. But I was like,
a casual, if you will.
Yeah, he is a casual. We can call him that. But as soon as he locked up that DAS, I knew. I was like, we said it so perfectly as well. I was so happy about that. It was like, again, it was off the knockdown as well. It was a beautiful knee, and it was predatory. Just locking up that choke. I loved it. It was exactly, just perfect Kevin Holland, really. Exactly what I hoped he'd bring. And I feel for Chiesa, but that's the game, isn't it? You're getting surpassed by the younger guy. That's just how it is. But there's no disrespect to Chiesa because he's an elite fighter. Maybe not as good as he used to be, but I don't think that diminishes the win for Holland at all. I think it was a brilliant performance, and to do it that quickly too, very impressive. So yeah, I was very happy with that.
I'm sitting here right now. I've got my iced coffee. I'm feeling like the frog meme.
I'm not following it. I'm trying to.
I'm feeling like the meme when he's sipping his tea, the frog, because Kermit. I feel like Kermit. I feel like the Kermit meme. I couldn't think of the fella's name. Kermit. I feel like the Kermit meme because I'm sitting there last night and I've had it before where I've got predictions right and the final sequence and how it was going to play out pretty accurately. But I haven't really before play by play given you the exact finishing sequence of what we're going to see. Because, as I said last week, Kevin Holland was going to tag Michael Chiesa on the feet. He was going to be too sharp, too powerful, too rangy. He was going to back him up against the cage. He was either going to go right hand or he was just going to go knee. He was going to stumble him. He was going to get him into a turtle position. He was going to dance him. I said he should have been called the Dark Knight. I prefaced that last week. I shall say it again. Kevin Holland is the Dark Knight. Not only is it perfectly befitting of his mixed martial arts game, but he is a legitimate, documented superhero. We need to talk about Kevin Holland being in the conversation for one of the most exciting fighters in the organisation.
I think that was already well in. That was stone cold fact.
I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy to hear that.
I was already on that train.
We also have to start having the conversation or start warming up the conversation of a Kevin Holland fighting for the BMF belt. Because you look at the people that are fighting around those weights. You're looking at the people, the McGregors, the Gages, the Poiriers, all people that are not fighting for the title at 55 because it's the BMF. So they could do it at 170. They could do it against Kevin Holland. And Kevin Holland is undoubtedly one of the biggest stars, superstars in the sport, and has a die-hard backing. And one thing I'll say about Kevin Holland is he gives a lot of time back to his fans. He interacts a lot with his community, gives a lot back to his community, and he's very beloved and has a very loyal fan base. And rightly so, because when you look at the UFC, there's none more game than Kevin Holland. You look at how he got into the organisation, stepping in on about 20 minutes notice to fight Thiago Santos, who's on an absolute tear, one of the scariest fellas in the division, with a flipping war hammer attached to his chest, and he's doing that just on a couple of days' notice because Dana said call Big Mouth. Next thing you know, he's taking Khamzat Chimaev, the most feared man in mixed martial arts to many, on 20 minutes notice because no one else will fight him because everyone else is pulled out and they're doing a fight card in an hour. We have to talk about Kevin Holland being a BMF. So not only was I sitting there smug with my decision, I'm sitting there as the biggest Kevin Holland fan, because obviously when I got into the sport was the year of Kevin Holland. The year of 2020 was the year of Kevin Holland. So I've grown up on Kevin Holland, really, if you can say that.
No, I'm sort of with you there as well. I mean, I think he won. It was 5 fights he won. If I'm not, I could be wrong there.
You're right. No, you're right.
Was it
first
5?
person to do that ever,
wild,
I believe, or one of the first.
Yeah, and that crazy win over Jacare, that's just that
was
crazy
obscene
stuff. He just starts talking to him and just socks him with the right hand off the bottom. Crazy stuff.
And that's the thing, because you don't know if you're going to get a Stockton slap. You don't know with Kevin Holland if you're going to get a Stockton slap, a flying elbow, a jumping switch knee, if he's going to talk to you, wrestle you, take you down, submit you. You just don't know what you're going to get with him. But you do know one thing. He's going to be in there and he's going to feel more comfortable than the next man. And the next man was Michael Chiesa, who hadn't been there for 2 years and whose skills have arguably got very outdated, where Kevin Holland has not only evolved his game, but he's sharpened his skill sets. And he was an absolute laser. And it's interesting to mention that Sean Strickland did tweet about Michael Chiesa apparently not getting very difficult sparring rounds in, or not getting a lot, if any, sparring in. And you sort of did see that a little bit, because he didn't react very good to the shots.
Well,
he didn't react very well in that first round.
So,
well, that is a little bit. I'm glad you said that, because I saw someone say that in the comments.
Yeah.
And I want to preface that by saying Max Holloway sparred every waking moment of his life until the camp that he didn't spar, which was for Volkanovski, because they were in quarantine and he couldn't, and he done just some training in lockdown. And then he came out and said prior that not sparring didn't make him as sharp, and he sparred in the actual trilogy. So whilst that is true, that is a little bit distorted as well.
Yeah.
I know obviously you say that, but I'm just, obviously a lot of people in the comments said that. So
I agree.
I'm glad that you brought
anyway,
it up.
that's Max Holloway. He's a different breed.
But it did just look a little bit like that from Michael Chiesa, to be perfectly honest.
A little bit behind, a little bit slow, yeah.
A little bit behind.
It might just be the age and everything catching up to him a little bit, but it's...
Talking about age catching up to Tony Ferguson and Bobby Green, what do you think? Because I actually don't... Call me crazy. Tony Ferguson looked good.
Nah, I can't agree with that.
He's 39
Maybe in the first...
years of age fighting Bobby Green. Bobby Green is as legitimate as a lightweight as you can possibly find. He's been in the UFC forever. He is very well skilled, and he has a very, very good striking. He's been up there with the top guys, and not that long ago, he was fighting Fitzheath to a decision that I would argue he won. So when we talk about Bobby Green, we need to forget the Islam Makhachev fights on 10 days' notice and look at him for what he actually is, which is a legitimate sort of top 15 fighter in the lightweight division, which is one of the most stacked. And Tony Ferguson was competitive. I'm not saying he was amazing, as good as he's ever been. I'm not saying he was threatening. I'm just saying, for 39 years of age, 5-fight win streak, all of the injuries, all of the damage, all of the career, all of the trauma, everything considered, that was a good performance.
Yeah, I think for the first 5, I agree. I think after that, he just looked slow, sloppy, and I actually think that's more to the altitude. So I won't criticize him too much for that, because again, we saw that all over the card, as we said that was going to happen. It was when that arm triangle locked in. You know, you just knew a guy like Tony's never gonna. He's always gonna go out on his shield. And as soon as he started thrashing his legs, I was like, he's done, man. And then they just went. They went out, and then
Something about an arm triangle, wasn't there?
Oh my word! I have credit to Bobby Green for snatching it up because it takes you know a lot of just experience in the cage and just a lot of practice to know that that's there, especially in the last seconds of the fight when you're tired. You can think, okay, I'm on top here. I'll coast to the decision. Bobby Green's not that guy, so to look for that finish that late, you know, that commands a lot of respect. Especially locking it up that late, very impressive. It's a good win on his record name wise, of course. I'm not going to sit here. It's going to say it's going to age poorly. Or
that's an enormous win.
But yeah, it's a good win.
It's an enormous win,
especially against a guy that's so unorthodox like Tony, because he's always going to be dangerous.
I think we're going into the. Sorry, go on.
I mean, I almost just wish that most of these fights, I just wish they weren't elevation, because we could have had maybe the same results, but just a way more entertaining scrap. And I'll lead that into the next fight in a bit, but I'll let you go on your point. What were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say as well, when you said about elevation, I will say, in the last card that we watched closely, very closely, there were a lot of fights on there where they got noticeably fatigued and noticeably gassed, to the sense where you could tell that it wasn't ill preparation, it was just a considerable impact of elevation. But I know you mentioned it there, but we have to remember that was just a high-paced fight. The chances of him getting slow in the third round are very, very high, because there was a lot of scrambles, there was a lot of fighting off his back, a lot of submission attempts, a lot of striking, a lot of damage as well. Tony took some big shots. Tony took some big shots, and I know that's not a good thing, but I mean, he ate them. He ate these shots. He didn't get knocked out. I think we've got this a little bit... I don't know. I feel like these last few fights have given us a warped sense of Tony Ferguson a little bit, because we've seen a random few things that has just maybe not given us the full picture, because that fight was pretty competitive. He was doing okay. It wasn't bad. The Chandler fight, of course, he got KO'd unconscious, but I mean, he got front kicked to the oblivion. I don't really know if anyone in the world is, you know what I'm saying there? There's no one taking that.
And he dropped him too. He dropped him in the first round. People forget that.
Some massive overhand rights against Bobby Green, and Bobby Green can strike, and he was sitting down on his shots more than he has done it a lot of times, because you could see he wasn't quite fearing what was coming back as much in terms of the striking, and he felt like he just had the speed and the good eyes to see it, which he did. And I actually quite liked when he got on the mic after and shouted out his coach, who said to him, apparently back in the day, Bobby, what are you going to do when your speed and your vision goes in terms of being in the pocket? And he went, well, I'm 36 and it's still not gone. And that is a fair point, because
very valid point.
Bobby Green is 36 years of age, competing in arguably one of the toughest divisions in the sport, and he's always in close fights. He's always in close fights. He's always in competitive fights, and he's always consistent. And to be that consistent in the toughest division, or one of the toughest divisions in the toughest organisation, is seriously impressive. But yeah, that was a good win in terms of name value and one-off for Bobby Green, and it just elevates what he's done and obviously compounds what he's done in his career. And he really is a success story from what he's come from to what he's established in this organisation. Strikeforce, I believe it was.
In recent few years as well.
Was it WEC? I think he came from one of those two. He's a vet.
Yeah.
Strikeforce, I think it was.
It's impressive that he's come so... the last 3 years, really, he's really risen just to that next level, you know. And
good point.
I'm very impressed. He's always, and the guys he's losing to, they're very there's no shame in it. Guys like Drew Dober, he's a killer, man. One of the most underrated guys.
Drew Dober knocks anyone out.
And Makachev, I don't even need to explain that. You know, it's the guy, and then the guys he's beating equally as good. So he's he deserves to be where he is completely, and at that age, it's very impressive to even sustain that high level without dropping your standards. I'm always going to tune into a Bobby Green fight.
Let's talk about high level and not dropping standards. And some man that has done that, he's come into the MMA space after 1.5 years or 1.5 years in normal people terms. He's become a double champion in Glory Kickboxing. He comes over, defeats his arch nemesis Adesanya, wins the middleweight championship. Only man in middleweight history to ever beat him. Loses the championship, goes up, fights for a contendership at light heavyweight, and beats one of the most storied men in that division and ex-champions.
That fight irked me, man.
Tell me what you think about that.
It was really frustrating because I was on the Yarn. I was pushing for Yarn that fight. And the way I see it, anywhere other than Salt Lake City, Yarn is winning that fight. I can't. Or I mean, what I mean by that is anywhere other than that's not thousands of feet above sea level. I think Yarn wins that fight. I think if altitude affected anyone that badly in the whole card, it was Yarn. He looked so tired after that first round, and that's a round where he's on Pereira's back. He's got all the weight on top of Pereira, and he looked so gassed on going into that second round. It blew my mind. Shows you how big of a factor it is, as we talked about last week. And I have to give Pereira credit for his ability to get up. He worked his way back to the cage to stand up a lot of those grappling exchanges. So I have to give him credit there. It just feels like because Yarn was beating him on the feet in a lot of those exchanges. That left hook was landing. He sort of come in, pivot off, and land that left hook at the end of a combination. That was landing quite a lot for Yarn, and he just didn't have the pop on them after a while. And even then, even when he was completely gassed, he still landed that takedown.
Did I not say that last week?
Yeah, you did say that, and it's frustrating that it's a factor that's out of their control that was such a big influence. Because I think the way I see that is if the altitude is not a factor, Yarn gets the takedown in the second again and either wins a 29-28 or a 30-27. I think the fact he was so tired gave Alex that opportunity to stand up and do his work on the feet. Yeah, no, go flip it. That's the way I see it. It was the right decision, but it was. I don't think there's anything about a robbery or anything like that.
No,
it was a close fight. I would have been mad either way, but to say it was a robbery was absolutely wrong. But it's more
zero damage with the control in the last round.
Yeah, it was a close round, but it's the circumstances of the win that I was more frustrated with.
I have to say, we're at a point now where we have to sit there and pay attention to what Alex Pereira is doing in mixed martial arts, because not only has he come into a foreign sport, he's gone into elevation with one of the most credentialed and veterans in the light heavyweight division in Jan Blachowicz, who's a very rare entity in regard that he has difficult, tricky, aggressive black belt jiu-jitsu at such a heavy weight class. So the fact that Alex Pereira has been able to go to elevation and to be able to fight multiple scenarios and multiple minutes in those fights in a realm where he's not very familiar, not very comfortable, and to be able to stay fresh enough to fight at a consistently high pace is super impressive. Because when it was in that first round, number one, I was blown away by his defense. He done absolutely everything right. Now, I know in theory we can say he trains with Glover and he's going to have good submission defense and he should know what to do. That's in theory. When you're in a fight against one of the best light heavyweights in the world at elevation in your debut at that weight class, very different vibe. Made very good decisions. Stayed very safe, always attacked the choking hand, and did a great job at times of not prioritising the body lock because it become uncomfortable. And he had Jan on his back, he carried all his weight on his post, he had a body lock cinched in, and he was threatening the choke. He stayed calm, he stayed composed, and he stayed fresh enough to be able to go 3 rounds and take that decision. And I thought, in terms of the evolution of Alex Pereira's game, that was absolutely incredible to be able to do that. And all light heavyweights should be taking notice, because now he's 230 pounds. His defense is getting a lot better. His confidence is probably going to grow a lot from this in terms of the grappling exchanges at 205 pounds. And now you have a look at the grapplers he's potentially going to face. They're going to be less aggressive with those takedowns and those grappling exchanges than a Jan. If you look at the likes of Yuri or even a Jamal Hill. Good grapplers, but not people that are going to want to go there to nullify your threats, if that makes sense. Or people
I
that
think
can
if you're fighting Alex, you might want to.
But is Jamal Hill or Yuri going to do that?
I agree. I mean, I agree. I was very impressed with the submission defense. Again, as you said, working with a guy like Glover Teixeira, that speaks for itself with how esteemed of a grappler he is. You're going to get that experience and that's going to transfer to you. And it's impressive how well he's picked that up. Especially, I was saying this to my brother actually. Imagine how scary he would be if he was training MMA from the age. He would be unstoppable. He really would
Imagine
be.
Him with arm bars.
Exactly. Like, it's
an
actual fleshed out ground game. He would be unstoppable. I will. There's still work to be done, though. Obviously, as there is, he's only been in the game for a short amount of time. I think the takedown defense could use some work. I think he gave that one in the third round up too easily. That was the one that really caught my eye as something. Okay, could be improving there. But again, he was tired too, so that is also a fact that you could see the altitude was affecting him quite a lot. Because the pace of the fight itself wasn't crazy high, and that just shows you how crazy the altitude factor was, because they looked like they'd been in a 25-minute war after the first 5. But yeah, and he impressed me with defending in such a disadvantaged position, being like that with Jan on the body triangle. It's so difficult to deal with. Again, I know I keep saying the altitude, but just compounding that on top of each other, it's
crazy. It takes crazy.
A lot. Yeah, it takes a lot to even stay in that fight after that first round. So to take the second as he did and make it competitive in the third, where it was very close round, but I think he edged it on the significant strikes. I wasn't mad at the decision. Sad for Jan, because I feel like he could have won that fight in any other place. I don't understand why guys keep taking fights. If I was in the UFC and they say, right, Salt Lake City, you want in, I'm out. I'm absolutely out. Yeah, I mean, it's a risk you just don't want to run, and I actually feel that led into the main event too, if you don't mind me segueing just a tad.
I was just going to touch upon one last thing on the Pereira fight. Is something that I was super interested to see before this fight took place was the kicking offense and defense of both men. And they both had their moments in that fight when offensively and defensively they were very good. However, I think Alex Pereira's low kicks once again paid dividends. And when we have a look at how tired Yuri was and look at how limited his power was going into the third round comparatively for him, Alex done a great job of taking the pop away from Jan Blachowicz, better than Jan did taking it away from Alex, because it was always about the left hook battle. And when you know anything about the mechanics of a left hook, you'll know that you want to use that front leg, explode into it, turn that foot in, and really pivot your hips into it. But when that front leg's chewed up, you cannot do that, or you cannot do that with much venom. And Alex Pereira has to be said that he has one of the best, if not the best, calf kicking game of all time.
I do. I think the best.
We're putting him up there with the Jose Aldos and the Justin Gages, because it's very similar. I watched a tutorial once of Liam Harrison showing his leg kicking offense, of how he sort of doesn't turn the hip over, he just flicks his leg out and retracts it, because although it's not as powerful, he can land 2 by the time the person's even noticed as 1. And I heard Adesanya say the same thing about Alex. And I watch Alex Pereira and I see Liam Harrison do a breakdown of his calf kicking game. And although that's a random comparison, they're very, very similar in the way that they don't turn the hip and they have no tell and there's no
crazy,
fat.
Isn't it?
And because they're so well versed in what they do and they're such high level operators, of course they land at the perfect precision, because they're doing things at a lot lesser of a tempo, because they're not putting everything into it. And the frequency and the accuracy Alex Pereira was landing on those low kicks, I think that's really, really what sort of tipped the scales in his favour, if you like.
I think that edged him the second round, was just the abundance of the low kicks. They added up, they really did. And just Jan was having some more success with the head strikes. Sorry,
no, for sure. No, go on.
It was the calf kicks that edged it for me in that second round, because the second I don't think people realize how close that second round was too.
Yeah,
I thought that fight could have gone either way. I really did, because it was a story of the second and third round, really. So yeah, but yeah, no, I was very impressed. I mean, we knew that going in how good his low kicks was. That was, if you ask me, against Adesanya in that rematch, he was winning that fight pretty convincingly.
Wow, he was doing so well.
The scales, it was a chess match in that first round, but the scales were just gradually going and going and going, until everything just dismantled and crashed and burned. But
it gives you
Sorry,
all I was going to say, it gives you a little false perspective, that fight, when you actually think of how it ended, because when you watch it back, it's pretty close. And the last thing I was going to actually say on that Pereira fight is just touching on the light heavyweights quickly. You think of the people at the top of that division, Yuri Prochazka, Jamal Hill, they have very wide stances.
I can see a guy like Jiri. Because he's so wild. I feel like he could get clipped.
They have very wide stances, and you look at their foot placement, and it really, really supports giving that front leg to Alex Pereira. As much as I love Jamal Hill's striking, he has a super, super wide base, a really, really wide base. And he does a good job of sliding in and out of range, but it's going to be hard to slide out of the range with that speed of low kick. And you have a look at someone like Yuri as well, again, super wide base, who relies a lot on his movement. And I think people like Alex Pereira, who now is probably going to nullify people's grappling like Yuri and Jamal offensively, I think is going to stay standing. And that low kick is a really, really big factor at 205. It's deadly because it's, Adesanya said it himself, it's 2 and it's kind of done. You could not be standing and you're in the second round and you've got 20 minutes with Alex Pereira and you're a little bit restricted. You're backed up against the cage because you can't really move. You're wounded like a poor stranded animal. You're just like you've been clipped by a car and you're just dragging your gammy leg.
Man.
Yeah, and he squared you up and now he's letting hooks go, which is actually where his most dangerous place is, where he's also weakest.
Yeah, completely. I mean, that's how he got caught twice, actually. It was almost identical. He got finished identically in the first fight, didn't he? The same shot, putting that pressure on against Izzy against the cage. And then he fired back with that right hand. It was, and the left hook behind it. It was exactly the same.
So it's like, how much do you want to play with fire?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's also, you have to say that his chin, I wouldn't really say his chin got tested too much.
Mate, it's granite. His chin's granite.
You think? Yeah, I mean, this is my point, that obviously his chin's going to improve because cutting less weight, you're not going to be worried about shots as much. You can roll with them a little bit easier.
His shoulders, mate. His back. He's up here. He's double bicep flexing, and his traps and his shoulders, and he's
freak of nature. Isn't
he's
he?
just, and he's dense. He's dense. You see him against Jan Blachowicz.
He's massive, man.
He was a different weight class to Jan.
He could fight a heavyweight, man.
He was a different weight class to Jan Blachowicz. A different weight class. He looked enormous in there. And I know that's a very unoriginal statement and we're not saying anything new here, but just as a general observation, it was actually insane. I didn't expect it to look like that. It looked like little and large. It was mental.
Yeah, it was wild. And he's moving up. He just moved up. Normally you look like the smaller guy. It's crazy. Ridiculous. It is crazy.
Segue.
I think we got to.
We
got to segue right in there into the main event because, again, I'll try and not say it again about the altitude.
Don't say it.
But I'm gonna say it. I will say it. I mean, you could almost see it a little bit affecting Poirier there. I really started to notice it just at the start of the second round. Looked a bit slow. It was kind of the story a lot of the fight, and I will say a lot of that is a testament to how much Gaethje's striking has improved in terms of becoming more patient, a bit more technical, but still willing to throw down and go wild, but still remaining defensively responsible. Again, all of that is responsible from guys like Trevor Whitman just completely transforming his game. And you think back that to the first fight, it's a different story. Gaethje wild, swinging for the fences, still has the danger, the power, but now he's much more composed. And he was hanging in there with Poirier, and I think he was winning those striking exchanges. Again, we talked about the leg kicks of Pereira, the leg kicks of Gaethje, right? They were unbelievable, brilliant stuff. And he was I will say, I was worried he was going to get caught with the same shot he finished Poirier with, because that high kick that Poirier was throwing it was quite a weird one, because Gaethje was ducking into it and Poirier was almost connecting with the knee as well. It was sort of he was sort of throwing to the body, but it was
Aljo
kind of
Marlon Moraes.
Yes, perfect comparison. And so I could see that potentially happening there. I could see Poirier perhaps getting a finish there. But I think on the feet, for the most part, Gaethje was winning. He had that one shot which cut his eye, which clearly bothered him.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I mean, that shows his ability to rally back from that, because it was difficult to deal with it, especially when you've got a cut right there. It's bothering your eye, distracts you, and something like that, just so minor, you switch off for 1 second thinking about that cut, and suddenly there's a left hook flying, or something like that, or a kick, and you don't react, and then suddenly you're out. But no, he did really well to stay in that fight, and he looked really good. And for how short that fight was, I did not expect. I did think Gaethje would take over. I was more confident about that because the fact he was winning the early rounds, I was like, right, those are Poirier's to win. Really, if we're talking cardio-wise, because Gaethje's only going to grow into this fight. He really is. And, I mean, for him, I was almost annoyed we didn't get to see a war, but wow, that knockout was unbelievable. It hurts seeing Dustin getting KO'd like that. It does, because it's so rare, and you don't want to see it happen to a guy like him. But wow, I was very impressed, and I'm happy for Gaethje because this is his last dance, really, isn't it? This is his last go at the title. So that was a must-win fight for him, really, because he loses that, he's set back 2 or 3 fights, he's got to get back in the game, and by the time he even gets a title shot, if that, he's old, man, and this is his chance, and I hope he goes for it. I hope he gets the shot after Oliveira, regardless of how that fight turns out. I mean, you can't not watch a Gaethje fight. He's the highlight for a reason, isn't he? How many post-fight bonuses has he got now? I think they said before he's got the most since 2017 of any fighter. And now I'm sure they announced it, I haven't seen, but I'm just going to safely assume he's added another one to his record.
I have to start by saying that the conversation has ended to who is the most exciting fighter. The conversation has ended to who is the most exciting fighter in existence, because whether you like it or whether you do not, objectively, statistically, numerically, Justin Gaethje has more post-fight bonuses than he does fights in the UFC, and he is fighting the highest caliber of 155-pound fighters in the world over the past decade, and once again has gone out and shown why he is called the highlight, which is a little bit of a disservice to him now because potentially it overlooks the natural ability he has paired with the hard work and persistence with the likes of Trevor Whitman on his boxing and his striking. And I believe that this win is a culmination of things over the last 10 years in regards to lessons he's learned, in regards to his striking improving, laterally movement was so much more improved. When I was watching in the build-up, I was getting more confident by the day in my Justin Gaethje pick, which felt a little bit rare for me because typically in pick'ems, even when I watch the training videos, I don't sway too much, but I was just getting further and further and further down the line and more confident. And the reason, because, as I said, a culmination of things. When I factored in Dustin's long time off, the fact that he didn't want to fight up-and-comers, which, like I said, completely understand, but Justin Gaethje sitting across the table, putting his hands up to fight Fitzev, which is one of the most terrifying men in the sport, full stop, who's getting very impressive wins and who's making a point of fighting these guys to get to the belt. And then you see the adjustments he's making in his game, and then you watch his training videos and the way that his footwork is now operating and the way that he's being able to move laterally and actually use a jab. He's literally implemented a jab and some patience into his game, and he's transcended himself into this fighter that is potentially capable of anything. Because when you have a look at Justin Gaethje, it's very often overlooked his athleticism. This man is one of the most athletic fighters, full stop. And don't be fooled by the dad bod that we sometimes often see from Justin Gaethje, because he is a freak of nature. We've seen him do some crazy things in scrambles. He's a hard man to pin down. His wrestling offensively is always very good. But then you have to remember, he never even shot a takedown, up until the last fight, because he never wanted to wrestle again because he'd done it all in high school.
Everyone in the arena was going, when he landed that takedown, and everyone started
cheering.
He's 1
for 1. He's 1 for 1 and documented an incredible high school wrestler. And that's the crazy thing with Justin Gaethje, because you look at his skill set and you start realizing that when you pair that with his ability now to move laterally, pick his moments, add his times in the pockets when he can let his combinations go, and then he safely exits and he's circling out of danger. It's blowing my mind because we're seeing the reckless, chaotic, dangerous Justin Gaethje in perfect doses, just refined in a way where you still got the beauty that is the highlight, but you've done it in a way where you've refined it. You've got all the skills polished up in a Trevor Whitman style that now you're just dropping them in where need be, and you're evolving that into a game where it's making him unstoppable. And he's just come out and executed one of the best head kicks you're ever likely going to see, which, by the way, was a picture perfect knockout of the one we saw this time last year in the final, of course, with Leon Edwards and Kamaru Usman.
The same place.
Which is incredible, because I saw so much backlash for Trevor Whitman, which is ridiculous anyway, because he's undoubtedly one of the best coaches.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that he's obviously gone away and really studied that high kick to the nth degree, practiced that and drilled that with Justin Gaethje, and then to execute in that fight was absolutely incredible. And I was saying in the run-up to that finish, I was saying, Justin Gaethje, for me, when he was in that orthodox stance, he had to go power back leg to the body and to the head just to beat up the arms of Dustin Poirier and to slow him down. And I just did not anticipate that head kick.
I don't think anyone did.
He put the right hand behind it perfectly. He sticks the landing, and Justin Gaethje is the most exciting fighter we've ever seen in combat sports. And I've seen some people argue sports, period. And there's a very good argument for that.
You know what? I'm not even... I'd put him in that... Of course I'd put him in that conversation. It's crazy. He'll be remembered for that as well. Regardless of whether if he claims undisputed gold or not, I don't think that even matters, because I say this a lot in my videos. A lot of the times it's the guys who... you know, it's the guys that are remembered aren't the dudes that win the belts and string a couple of title defenses. Like, it's the guys who do shit like that week, you know, not week in, week out. That would be crazy. But, you know, every fight they put it on, like, and they're the ones that are remembered. And Gaethje personifies that perfectly. He is, you know, always just the best. And he impressed me so much. I didn't think he had that in his locker, really. And even he said it himself, he never throws that high kick. And it's just, if anyone's honest, if anyone's going to land it, it's going to be a guy like him. And I'm glad it was. It's just a shame it was against a guy like Dustin. You hate to see get knocked out. But again, he said it himself in the post-fight, that is the fight game. You know, it's the ups and the downs, and you're going to get caught because you're fighting, you run that risk. And he ran that risk and he got clipped. And it's almost more of a test of how good the head kick was, the fact that he still blocked it partially. But it wrapped around the head perfectly, and it was similar to the Usman's one, but it didn't, the Leon one, I mean, but it didn't put him away completely. It was just enough to just switch everything off down, like in the legs and everything. You could see he was still there, just about barely. It was a perfect stoppage from Herb, despite the fact he came flying in there.
Impressive.
But yeah, it was a beautiful shot. I love a head kick. And we got the Kopylov one as well, which we forgot to mention. There's a couple of fights in there I forgot to mention. That Kopylov shot was beautiful.
Bonfim.
Bonfim. I was going to say, what a guillotine that was. Unbelievable. Again, we talked about how good he is, and his brother, obviously. Very impressive. Really impressive. And also, I can't believe we didn't touch on Derek Lewis. What on earth?
Oh, my word.
Was that? Oh, my goodness.
I have to say, I don't even want to be that guy again, but I've got to sit here and take my own flowers when they're there, because you don't get many chances in this game. So I shall take them when they have blossomed. And I'm sitting there on live stream. And I'm saying, I don't know if people are listening or paying much attention. I am half asleep, quite literally. And I'm saying... If you go back and watch Derek Lewis's fights, I said he's going to come out with a flying switch kick or a flying knee, and he's going to try and establish dominance early and say to Lima, listen, you're not just going to run through me. I'm not one of these guys you can just beat up and has lost the touch. And that takes a lot, because after you've been on a losing streak, especially at heavyweight where it can flip so quickly, someone like Derek Lewis, who's come out and he's obviously had his struggles in terms of wanting to actually perform on the evening sometimes as well, which you see with guys with such storied records, because they've seen the repercussions of these dangerous fights. Even if that's from his wins, he's seen what can happen to guys when you're playing this sport. And he's come out, he's thrown a picture-perfect Jorge Masvidal knee to the dome, followed it up, got one of the most impressive finishes you're ever likely to see, tops the knockouts of all time in the company, on the BMF main card, takes his shorts off, and starts dancing in the middle of the octagon. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the most Derek Lewis win and victory and knockout you are ever going to see. A freak of nature, a jiu-jitsu repellent, and a knockout machine. Derek Lewis is not to be messed with. The Black Beast.
He just stands up, man. He just rejects jiu-jitsu.
Jiu-jitsu repellent. It just doesn't...
it doesn't work, man.
Doesn't work. How are you meant to choke a guy like that? You think you can DARS Derek Lewis?
I mean, my arms wouldn't even get around him. So
DARSing Derek Lewis.
My arms would not even get around him. Seriously, his head is too big. Yeah, no.
You can't guillotine a Derek Lewis.
You can't. You quite literally can't.
Or Volk. Oh, that's the story for another day.
It's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, very impressive. I'm happy to see him get back in the win column because he's just one of the most fun guys inside and out of the cage. He's always on the mic. He's just hilarious. So it's good to see him back in there.
I've got one for you.
Go for it.
We have to touch on it. We won't get into it too deep because we can't always get into the speculations that we hear, but we've got to touch on it. Just because we've had the BMF and the rumblings, of course, on Twitter, because Twitter is sponsored by Proper 12 and Conor McGregor anytime there's a fight on, especially a lightweight. Is there a world where Conor McGregor fights Justin Gaethje for a BMF title?
Honestly, I'd rather Conor just doesn't fight.
Discuss.
If he's gonna fight, he just needs to shut his trap online and just get training. Otherwise, just leave, man. It's so annoying.
You know the exams. Does Conor McGregor fight Justin Gaethje for a BMF title next? Discuss. 24 marks.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, that's the way I see it. If he's I'm trying to get analytical to get the grade, you know. But if he's like
point, evidence, explain, link. Come on.
No, but if he's gonna fight Gaethje, he actually has to put the graft in because he's not doing that. Look at the guy, man. I don't see a world where he comes back, and let alone if he does, he's not winning. He's not. His mind's not in the game anymore. His heart's not in the game anymore. And compounding of he's been out for too long. He hasn't the injury as well. I don't want to see him come back because at this point it's becoming a bit of a piss take.
You're lying,
I really don't. I'm sick of it.
You're lying.
The only reason I want to see him come back is
Conor McGregor
Justin
fight
Gaethje.
week. It's embedded. He's there. He's got a press conference, and you're sitting there telling me, actually, I'd rather he didn't fight because I don't really want to see it again.
Well, the only reason I want to see him fight is so I can see a guy like Gaethje land that head kick square on his cranium. That's what I want because I don't want to see him get anywhere near a belt, let alone upon like the BMF title. You know, I don't want it.
Do you want to hear a fact?
If he's gonna fight, I want to see him lose. That's it. Because I don't like the guy anymore. Because he's all talk. He's all talk, man. That's just it.
Do you want to hear the cold hard truth?
Go with it, please.
If Charles Oliveira...
No, don't do that to me, man. Don't do that to me,
He's on my heart.
Come on, man.
Conor McGregor fights for the title. I know,
they'll probably do it. I agree. I think you're probably right. And I hate that is probably true.
I'm correct.
I hate that is probably the case. I hate it because there's guys way more deserving than him, but because it's the notorious, isn't it? Of course he's gonna get it.
People are gonna argue with me.
Yeah.
People are gonna say that that's a stupid thing to say. I think, to be honest, if you say that wouldn't be the case, you probably are not paying attention because it's Conor McGregor. And if you haven't noticed recently, whether you like it or not, whether you think it's true or not, the fact remains he is the biggest sport icon in this sport and the only person people know whenever you say MMA to anyone in the realm of the world that doesn't watch MMA.
It's like the money
Conor McGregor. And this is the money and entertainment business. And Charles Oliveira, who, by the way, we have to say is now one of the biggest. He has as many followers now, pretty much as Adesanya.
Really?
So that shows
I'm not actually surprised by that. He is. It's rare you a guy who can't even barely speak English that cultivates such a big international fan base. So it's weird actually. I'd say MMA is actually the sport that. It's kind of its own thing in that it's able to do that. You get guys like Petr Yan who become, you know, like these cultivated characters that people love. And any other sport, a Russian dude is going to get booed like crazy. But people love Petr Yan. Just purely because of, again, a lot of MMA fans, they only really care about how they do in the cage.
That's their love language.
And if exactly. And if that's the game, a guy like Charles Oliveira, of course he's going to be popular because he's one of the most exciting guys, win or lose in the sport. And even when he talks Portuguese, he's we talked about this, didn't he? He has that venom in him, and that in itself, even doesn't matter if you don't know what he's saying. You're listening. You're listening because he speaks with power.
For sure.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not surprised that he's. I mean, he was already one of the biggest stars, and I was talking to my brother about this as well. How much I didn't realize how much you don't realize how much you miss something until it's gone, and I missed the Oliveira because it was the best. Him with the belt was just the most exciting time.
The Oliveira.
The Oliveira, man.
Wow, that's a beautiful.
You not heard that? No. I'm not going to take credit for that at all.
I will.
Fair enough. I feel like I've heard. I mean,
I will.
Yeah.
I'll definitely reference that in future.
It is a good one.
Just claim that as my own.
Go for it.
The Oliveira. Yeah, no, that's brilliant. That is brilliant. No, we don't speak Portuguese. It reminds me of Whoopi Goldberg. We don't speak monkey. We don't speak whale. That's a very niche reference to the SeaWorld documentary on Tilikum, Blackfish.
Very niche.
If anyone's seen Blackfish, they'll know that it is legitimately one of the saddest but also best documentaries. I've seen it a lot of times. Very random reference. We don't speak Portuguese, but we speak MMA, and we speak passionate MMA. And when Charles Oliveira is on the mic, I don't even know what that was.
No. That was literally the only word I was thinking of as well.
The Illuminated by God part, and I went to do it, and then I just stopped halfway, and then it sort of crescendo.
You gave up.
It was like a Liverpudlian Italian.
Yeah, you dropped the scouse in
It
there.
was horrible. It was horrible.
I'll roll with it. It was all right.
I'm sort of reflecting on that a little bit. I need to
just anyway. Move on.
I'm upset about it. Anyway, right, so that pretty much wraps us up for 291. What did you think? Just in give me one sentence. Give me a sentence summary or a 2-sentence summary of what you thought of UFC 291.
Oh God, surprised me on how exciting it was, but also how frustrating it was, and that is of course reference to the word beginning with A, which I will not say again. Yeah, it's it was a good card. It was a nice just bolster because you get a lot of cards. Rare you get a card like that which doesn't finish with the title fight, because I don't count the BMF. That's just they added that in just for the added panache and flair. But it was a lot of times you don't need that. You don't need that. You don't. At the end of the day, a belt's just a belt, right? It's not. It's accolades and all, but you're there for the fights. That's what you're there for, really, isn't it? And they delivered. It was a good card. I was very happy with it.
If I was to summarise UFC 291 in one sentence, I would say unbelievable head kicks, ubiquitous in Utah.
Very nice. See, that's that poetry coming in. So you did a much better job than I have. You got these. You're stringing in the words. I like that.
It's practice. And you know what I'm going to say, actually? We're going to just go rogue here in the middle before we jump onto the next card. Because we obviously spoke at the end of our podcast last week. We had a chat about, you said about doing more and wanting to level up and things of that nature. And we spoke about a few things and how we could sort of increase output or how we could adjust and do things differently. And definitely over this last week, when you took accountability for that and messaged me and said, oh, by the way, this was useful and this was useful and I picked up this, I was like, right, yeah, you're so right. And I was just dialed in. I was so dialed in this week to just doubling down, just going hard. And as we've said before, it's not a hustle porn hard where it's just unnecessarily aggressive and you have to get up and think of nothing else, but it's just the realization of what we know we're capable of and what we know that we're happy to do, and we can look in the mirror and probably say, yeah, we can do this every waking minute, and we near enough do. What was the week like for you?
It was a mixed bag. It was a mixed bag trying to adjust to that, to literally doubling my workload, pretty
Not
much.
easy.
So it was no. I mean, but I knew I could do it, right? So
This is it.
And it's nice where you can get ahead. I basically just I took on board what you were saying, but for me, just personally, the way I switched up was I said what I was planning on doing at the end of the podcast. I said I need to stop thinking a bit about, you know, imaginary quotas and amounts to do for the day, and more just try and like, okay, well, let's not think about that as much. Let's just keep going.
Okay.
And we'll keep going each day, and we'll see how much I get done, and we'll keep going until I'm like, right, that's good. And ignore this bullshit quota, like, I need to do 1,000 words of this or whatnot, and then, okay, I'll work on something else, or I'll stop. It's like, let's just keep going until I feel happy.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, suddenly I've written 2,600 words in like a couple hours, which is, you know, crazy. And I was like, that's put me ahead of schedule now.
Yeah.
So now it feels like I've got way more time on my hands, which is even better, because like that means I can enjoy the other stuff I want to do just recreationally, and I'm still making really good progress anyway. So I'm still doubled the workload. I got 2 videos out this week. I got the other one out yesterday.
That's impressive.
They didn't perform that great, but it's not about that.
No, it's not.
You just keep going. You keep going with the graph, and I'm always trying to think of new things I can do, new ideas. And I think it keeps sparking the creativity. And I know not to teeter over, because if I go too much, I know I'll burn out. I am wary of that, because that's, for me, something like that, when that happens, it's a bit of a setback for me, because I struggle to get back on that train. Just, you know, get the steam going again.
Well, it sounds like you at least know you know your level a little bit, which is good. Sometimes people don't know where that level is.
Yeah, because I said I was holding myself back. I didn't want to admit it, but I was, because you have to be honest with yourself, as you said. So that's what I did. So yeah, 2 videos out this week. The first one's a little bit shorter, but it was more efficient. It was a more efficient video. I smashed it out really quickly.
Nice.
So, in fact, I got the full edit done in about just under a day, and then I finished it off in the morning in like 40 minutes, and then that was out, and I was like, cool, that's sorted. And then I had the whole rest of the day, so I was like, okay, now I can write some other stuff. I started writing a video on Adesanya.
That's cool.
I haven't finished it, but like now that's on the back burner. So I've got all sorts of little stuff I can work on, and if I want to or not, I know that I'm doing a good amount more that I was doing before, and I'm happy with it. So
I think what's quite easy as well is, I can't remember the specific name for it, but there's a name for the term where basically we dedicate a certain period of time to a task, and then subconsciously we will spend that amount of time on that task. So if you've set in your head, right, I'm going to write 1,000 words a day, you've probably many times spent the entire day writing 1,000 words. The day that you removed that stipulation,
completely
you literally wrote triple the amount, because you probably done it with less stress, more freedom, more creative freedom, a more relaxed approach, and also you wasn't set in your head of how many you were going to do, and you didn't restrict yourself subconsciously and consciously, and you just continued writing, whereas maybe you would have stopped.
That's how I used to work at uni. I was doing that. And then I was, especially a lot of my uni work, I was told a lot to, you know, in fact, planning was actually one of my learning outcomes, part of my grade, which is so dumb. Not a huge amount, but like, I had to make up shit because I hated planning so much. I made up all these bullshit charts and fake stuff that I didn't even use, just to get the grade. Because I didn't even use it once. I didn't plan anything that whole year. I just worked when I felt like working, and that was how I operated, and it worked for me. I didn't set deadlines, but I think being told to do that, I ended up taking that logic and applying it to my my YouTube stuff initially until the last couple of weeks. So, you know, I guess that was negatively affecting me a lot, because it was like, okay, I'm mentally setting these quotas, as I said, and you're right, you spend the whole day working towards that, even though your output is so much more than that. And I didn't realize how much of a mental thing that is. It's crazy, because I was smashing through that. I was like, how the hell did I take so long to do just 1,000 words when I can obliterate it? I know how good I am at writing these things and how quickly I can do it. It is wild, isn't it?
It's so funny you say that.
It transfers to editing as well. Sorry, I'll just
go on.
It transfers to the editing as well, because I'm getting more done. It is crazy. I look back how little I used to do and think, I've done a good amount. I'm like, no, I can smash out and I'll probably say the same in the future as I get better at it and I'm able to do more.
Yeah.
I get more just in touch with it and more streamlined. But you know, I can easily smash out like 3.5 minutes. You know,
that's impressive.
in like a maybe like 2 hours, which I think is pretty good.
Yeah, very impressive.
Maybe that's not a lot to some people. I don't know.
That's a lot.
Learning editing, but I'm happy with it, and I can get videos. I can get an edit done in 2-3 days now. For a full length video, maybe usually 2 days actually. 2 is definitely doable, so I'm very happy. I'm happy with how it's going.
It's so funny.
I'm just gonna keep going. We'll keep going.
It's so funny you say that, because it's so unbelievably true. When you have a look at processes that you're doing, whether it's creating content, doing an edit, creating a post in a particular way, whatever it may be, when you really dissect those things that you're doing, really dissect them and think, right, how can I actually level up? Not subconsciously do it and tell myself, okay, I'm doing an okay job. How can I actually improve this? How can I actually make this more efficient? You end up just being hysterically laughing at your previous self that thought that you were doing the maximum, because it's absolutely ridiculous. At a point to even where I reference maybe even about a year ago, when in my head I was doing one grid post a day on Instagram, and in my head, oh nice, I'm doing one a day, one grid post a day. That's more than most people, because most people don't post one a day on Instagram. It's like, oh, one a day. And then obviously now I've obviously got more time to do more, but still, that was an excuse. I could have done more back then. But now my mindset has obviously shifted into the approach and the identity of running as a big platform. And big platforms do not post once a day. They post once an hour.
Yeah, I respect you because you cover so much different bases.
Yeah.
I don't think I could do that in terms of just managing so many different output places to output your content. That sounds like such a headache. That's why I'm almost grateful most of mine is localized on YouTube, because I know what I need to do and when I can do it.
Well,
and I'm trying to do what you're doing in terms of building on the Instagram and stuff. I'm not posting like a huge amount, but maybe I don't need to, because mine is different from yours. You know, I'm YouTube wise, I'm doing a huge amount.
I think definitely with your shorts, especially using that platform that you use, I think you could definitely dice that up and do one Instagram a day. That would take 5 minutes to write a caption.
Yeah,
easy.
I could probably post. I mean, I don't understand. Is that reels? I don't know how that works.
Mate,
it's all far
you do a reel a day. I guarantee you, by the time you've done 20, you'll have one reel which has 40,000 views. I guarantee you.
Do you reckon I could post those shorts on as reels? Is that?
Are you being serious? That is perfect.
Might do that then. Might just get on that today then. Post.
No, like this is what I'm telling you.
Spread them out.
This is what I'm being matter of fact about it, because I know how little time actually requires, because you've got the video already. So we've not got to have the conversation about you telling me that you maybe don't have time.
I've got them on TikTok, so yeah, as well.
This is what I'm saying.
I don't know why I haven't done that.
There's not no, but sometimes you don't know until you know, or you don't think until you think. And I
am not thinking.
I have so many times where I get a light bulb switch and I'm thinking, how have I not thought about this until now? And sometimes you don't get that until you verbalise it. But yeah, literally put those on Instagram on the reel. That's just
and I can spread them out as well.
I
don't need to put them all out in bulk. Yeah.
But all I was going to say, just in regards to, in terms of the different bases, is to start off with, in short, to start off with, I'd just done that to cover everything, because I knew that I needed to niche down and narrow down, but I didn't know what into, so I wanted to taste a little bit of everything, or just try everything, see what I was good at, what I wasn't good at, what I enjoyed. Was it breakdowns? Was it making edits? Was it this? Was it that? Whatever it may be, because I had no idea. So it started off as that, but then what is built into now is, half of me knows, right, Will, if you actually want to grow quicker in a shorter period of time, you probably need to narrow down on one avenue, one avatar, one channel, Alex Hormozy model. But there's also a large part of me that says, I really enjoy it. Like, my true authentic self is pivoting a million different places. And I like creating Casual's Corner as an entity that can have underneath its umbrella food, travel, thoughts on the current news,
build on it.
This little bit of poetry or a vlog, whatever it may be, day in the life. And although it can be sporadic and it can be random, what I feel like I'm doing is, when I started, I was comparing. Okay, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this.
Yeah, I'm trying to do that less now.
Yeah, now
comparing is a really dangerous game.
It sounds a little bit cringe, but like this is the truth. This week I got a comment and it said, I put out a day in the life video and I just learning different editing tricks, and I've just been sort of trying to flex my muscles a little bit in terms of the editing and sound design and layering and things like that. And I put out a day in the life, and someone commented main character energy or something along those lines. And I don't know what it was. Like I said, it's a little bit cringe, a little bit American.
No,
but the first thing that just popped into my mind as I clicked reply was, that's the only player we can control. And then I was walking and I actually looked at it and I thought about it, and I thought, every time I've had almost like a mini breakthrough in the things that I've been doing, whether before it was fitness and now it's this in regards to making gains in it, it's when I've realised that. It's when I've realised that you really do only have control of your own player, your own entity, and no external factors, which is obvious.
It is obvious, but yeah, it's the obvious stuff you miss, isn't it?
But it really isn't obvious because a lot of people don't portray that, and I definitely didn't. When I first started getting into fitness, I've said before, you're always looking at other people. I want to look like this, I want to look like that, I want to do this, I don't have this, I don't have that genetic, they've got this genetic. But it's just all external energy and noise that is just completely focused on the wrong area, which is like, right, you have this, you've got no option but this, now we have to adapt it. And I think when I started realizing that for this channel, and also gearing it towards, yes, it's not going to be a channel that has necessarily one pure aim, but everyone that knows about Casuals Corner knows that it's going to be authentically me as the brand, and you possibly could have music or art or design or clothing or this within an MMA context, and I feel like I'm going to get a more concentrated community by doing that. That's what I think.
You're saying all the right things. I completely agree. I can see that for your brand. It's more of a personal thing. I think that's maybe a criticism on my part for my content is it's recognizable.
How
in
long
terms
have you
of
been doing
visually? In terms since my first video, or since I actually
started doing it sort of more consistently?
I'd say more consistently, probably like January or February, maybe.
So we're talking 5 months?
Yeah.
You've not started.
I started in October.
You've not even
October,
started.
But I was doing like one video a month and a half. So
you can't expect.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And for me as well, it's not as if I've even got this done either. I'm just getting more of a clearer picture. But you can't even expect to have some form of clear brand identity or sort of even.
But that's
vision.
what I'm trying to build. But in terms of it's more of a personal thing. Like you do a good job of, having a personal approach to it because it's you. There's a bit of a disconnect there because I don't show my face.
There was a ton of time I didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's true, but I don't know whether I should do that. And it's not because of, it's not like I'm insecure or anything like that. It's nothing to do with that or anything. It's just a case of whether it fits the content.
Can I ask you a question?
Right? Yeah, hit me with it.
I actually think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask you it anyway. Would you enjoy doing that? Of any capacity, whether it's of any capacity.
It depends on the style of content because I would, just for open discussion sort of stuff.
Kind of, yeah. Talking head, open discussion, maybe overlaid, maybe interwoven. Sorry, something like that. Would you enjoy it?
Yeah, I would. Not for the style of content I make now, though. That just doesn't fit it. It's
but
not like I wouldn't enjoy it, but
that.
It doesn't work. No, not for the videos I make now. No, because it just wouldn't make sense for me.
But my point is, you would enjoy doing that just in general.
Yeah, in different contexts, but yeah, in some of the contexts I would, yeah.
So you have to do it then.
Yeah, exactly. I guess, yeah.
There's not a conversation. I mean, what are you narrowing a brand to what? The brand is you. It's called Leo Cooper. So when you pivot, your brand comes with you because people like what you create. And if they don't, just won't watch that segment and element to it. So all that you're going to create is a more diverse and concrete brand within Leo Cooper YouTube.
Because I want to start live streaming as well, and obviously that is a necessary component as well. So, yeah, I just need to make that jump, I suppose.
All roads lead to Rome, and Rome is being you, and you being the brand.
Rome is an 100k subscriber flag.
Rome is 100k. Rome's 100k away and 100k subscribers, legit. But no, legitimately, all jokes aside, when you think about it, I think it's easy. I'm just gonna shoot. I'm gonna shoot here and tell me if I'm wrong, because this is how I would see it if it was me. I know it could just from my own mindset. I know for a fact that if I were you, I would be in a position with what you've accomplished and done already, which is obviously just the beginning. It's not even a drop in the ocean. But obviously, in terms of social media landscape, it's a good bit of decent success. 10k, hitting good videos, understanding the game, edits getting better, all that sort of stuff. In my head, I would be thinking, right, I'm just starting to get a following. I'm starting to get brand recognition and identity. I'm starting to get people to know the brand. I'm starting to evolve an image, a casuals guide to. I'm starting to evolve my subscribers. All these different metrics which are gearing towards the answer of I'm doing good things. I don't want to jeopardize that by doing something random and offbeat and it not doing very well.
That is it. That's 100% it. Yeah, because I don't want to, if I feel like it, because it's more for the case of the content I make now. If I put the face cam in, I personally don't think it would, I don't think it suits
Can
it.
I be honest?
That's the risk of it. Go for it.
The only answer is to do it.
Yeah, I mean, if I
and
do
to
want
do
to
it
do
in a
it
way
purely
that you
because
want to, not a way that feels unnatural.
Exactly. There's no one
but
stopping me
still
from doing
to do
that.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
have
There's no
to.
reason why I can't not do. I can't do. I can do both. I can do different style of content as well.
Can I say a crazy thing?
Yeah.
I literally 1 week I was eating my dinner watching the UFC, and I have no idea why I'd done it. I do know why I'd done it actually, just because my meal looked really appetizing in front of me, and John Anik was in front of me on the TV, and I just took a video like this of burger and chips I think I made, and of John Anik, and I just said, no better person I'd rather spend a Saturday evening with, or something along those lines. I posted the video. I never made really organic videos off my own phone at that point because I didn't even know how to or want to, or that wasn't indexing well, so I wouldn't do it. It got, in the landscape of things, no views, but it got like 10k views, which for me at the time was just like crazy. So I was just went crazy about it. And then 2 years later, I realised it's the thing I'm most passionate about actually posting and doing. And now we've got a full scheduled set and operation of Food Fighters. And my point is, if you could even have a glimpse of possibly enjoying it or having a passion to it, you have to explore it. You just have to. There's not even a conversation, a debate. If it flops, it flops. Maybe it's because the product's bad. Maybe it's because you haven't done enough reps. And also you have to remember, if it flops, what? If it gets one view, what?
Yeah, very good point. I need to remind myself of that because I know
like,
we talked
answer
about.
Me the question, like, if it gets one view, what for your brand?
Yeah, it don't matter.
It's a drop in the ocean.
Nothing,
It's a drop in the ocean.
Yeah.
And no one's gonna go, oh, you know what? I hate Leo Cooper's YouTube now, and I don't like any of his work because that one video. And by the way, that person didn't even see the video because he's only got one view, and it didn't index well enough to even get on their platform. So it's just reps in this game, and you've got something that works, and always double down. But if there's a potential thing that you'd enjoy, explore it because you never know where it may pivot. It may pivot into a place where you literally are sitting in an armchair like Chael and you're just chatting fights on your own channel and it's getting 10k views of a video.
Yeah. Yeah,
Why
you're putting
not?
it. I have very little to say because you're saying all the right things and I don't really know.
Because I've been there.
I got nothing to respond with.
I've been there. And my context is a little bit different because I wasn't on YouTube and absolutely smacking it like you are.
Of course.
And you're doing a great job there, for sure. But definitely the emotions in terms of how to... And you know what the truth is? The same way we spoke about the mindset made us laugh earlier about how our previous self we laugh at because we know we could do so much more. It's similar in this sense as well because you laugh at your previous self for thinking that you didn't necessarily want to do that or pivot in that direction because now you're doing something that you love so much.
Yeah, you're right. Completely right.
But you've done a good job, man. You really leveled it up this week. You inspired me, actually, to be honest, to do more.
Likewise.
Inspired me to do more.
Game recognises game, mate. That's it.
But you need that accountability sometimes, though, or you just need to see... Even just small adjustments is cool to see that because it makes me think, right, okay, if they're making that small adjustment, I can make an adjustment. I saw you put on your YouTube. You put on your YouTube community, what style of video do you like? And you got a poll feedback. Small adjustments there. That's just manifesting small adjustments because you're manifesting making different content, seeing what people like, doing market research. This isn't manifestation in terms of wish upon a star. This is going out, doing market research, getting feedback, doing A/B testing, like legitimate actual marketing and testing and rinse and repeat. So, but we need to get stuck into how long we been on?
Yeah.
What's
1 minute 20 nearly, 1 minute 19. Just
1 minute 19.
Just about, and now.
You mean an hour, 1 minute?
Yeah.
What, so 61 minutes?
I can't, what am I, 70 minutes.
Okay, hour 10. Okay, yeah, sweet. Yeah, so we'll get into the...
hour and 20.
Hour and 20.
No, 80 minutes even.
Mate, what the flip?
What's wrong with me?
You can't
Honestly,
tell a time.
Mate, listen, I got like a C in maths. Leave me alone.
I don't think they teach maths. I don't think they teach telling time in maths.
Shush.
To be honest, I'm thinking back to year 3, you know, when they had the big clock.
Yeah, you're right.
And they just spun the big clock at the start.
I should know.
Yeah, this card, I'm going to just give a hot take off the back. I'm just going to give a hot take, like just legitimately off the top of the dome. And people can come at me, I don't really care. These prelims, if you want to go from the first fight on the card to the main fight, and if you want to just look at that and just call them all prelims, probably excluding the main, which is obviously a cracker, this is a better fight card than last night.
You know what? I'm not even against you. I was looking at it earlier. It's nuts, man.
Am I wrong?
Mate, there's so many bangers on there.
Am I wrong? As a fight fan, am I wrong?
I'm looking at the prelims. Oh, my God, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Oh my god. Oh wait, no, that's cancelled. Damn, got me excited thinking Jake Hadley was fighting.
He is fighting.
Damn.
He is
Oh, he
fighting.
is?
And
It
that's
says
where I
it's
want to
cancelled.
start. I want to start at Jake Hadley and Cody Durden, who's stepping in
says
on
it's
last minute's
cancelled on
notice.
here.
No, Jake Hadley was fighting. Can't
Oh,
remember
sorry.
who.
Yeah, he hasn't showed up with Cody Durden. Yeah, you're right.
Trust me, I'm dialed into the.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. Oh, mate. Especially how good he looked after. We'll jump in with that one. Screw it. Because after how good he looked against Malcolm Gordon, that lovely body shot. And Malcolm Gordon, very credible guy. Been in the game for a long time. Yeah, exactly. Great win. Really promising guy. Good ground game too.
Black belt.
Yeah. Which again in this country.
Oh, you mean Jake Hadley? Sorry, Jake Hadley's not a black belt.
Not black belt.
Jake Hadley did get his brown belt from Bradley Hill after his win before. So he got it after his UFC win.
That's still, I mean, it's almost quite. You almost forget how good that is because in the UFC, so many guys are at that high level. You almost forget how good being a brown belt is. Anyway, that's just.
But it's
a ridiculous
also
amount of
how many of
experience.
those are actual black belts.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of that. Guys getting promoted just because they are in the UFC and maybe aren't as good grapplers. But then again, the ones who are always the ones that actually shine through. The real black belts will show through in the mat in the in the octagon. They'll show their ability. So, yeah, we should fly through some of these.
I want to just get stuck into the Jake Hadley one quickly.
Yeah, go for it.
Because I do want to say the thing I noticed most about Jake Hadley when I was fortunate enough to go to Birmingham and spend a day with him training.
Of course, he's a renegade, isn't he?
Man really is completely 100% dialed into fighting. To the point of, it actually was funny to me. I was asking him about his fight, his debut for the UFC, and he didn't even know the details or specifics about absolutely anything. He looked at me and just said, I only know about fighting. And he's true. Every ounce of his time and attention is spent into fighting. And you go and see him train, he really is all in this game. And best believe his skills are always evolving. He's got an incredible coaching staff behind him at Fearless MMA, Canby Wrestling, Bradley Hill Jiu-Jitsu, Renegade down the road. Obviously, he's seen Leon achieve championship status now, and he's never been under the illusion he can't become a flyweight champion. And he has every belief that he can do, and he has every belief because he has the skills to. Well, you look at him on the ground, he is a legitimate, we spoke about legit black belts. He's a legitimate brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because, especially in MMA, he's pulling things out. The leg dexterity he has and the tricky jiu-jitsu that Jake Hadley's got is very underrated. And he's got a very strong amateur career. You go back and watch his early pro fights. He's fought very good opposition for a very long period of time. And he's just putting his game together now. And I've always said about him, he does fantastic work down at Renegade with Ash Begg. And when I watch them on the pads, they just do the simplicities, but they do the small, refined details to such a high level. And the simple boxing is so good from Jake Hadley. And the ones and twos and the uppercuts and the hooks, they're all money. And then you start pairing that in with his incredible grappling. He's really become a problem. And Cody Durden, shout out because he's taken this on last minute's notice. And this is a tough opponent because he's on a bit of momentum, Cody Durden, and he's a very good grappler. So this is actually a great matchup and probably better than the original, to be honest.
I will actually say, you made a good point about him only caring about fighting and only knowing fighting. And those are the guys those are always the guys that go to the top. And I'm a good example, just literally the other week was, I don't know if you saw it's TNT Sports now, not BT, but Tom Aspinall did his interview. I can't remember whether it was with Adam or Nick, one of the two. Yeah. And he said about cutting those bad people out of his lives. And he actually expanded on that. I didn't see this clip until the other day. He said just people who were trying to drag him out for a pint or go around the chippy. Just little things. And he just cut them out of his life because, he's getting the opportunity to fight guys like John Jones. Like, that's what you're going to remember for the rest of your life, regardless of if you win or lose. What you're going to remember, the extra pint of Heineken or whatever, or Carlin, it's like...
Definitely
no, you're not going to remember that.
Yeah,
definitely not Carlin.
In the world. Heineken and Carlin in the UK is arguably two of the worst pints.
I'm not really a huge beer man anyway. I'll pick a Guinness, so that's about my...
I do like a Guinness.
I'm not huge on beer, but I don't mind a Guinness.
Not
that's
often
about
you find people that drink Guinness, to be fair.
Yeah, but, I mean,
I like a Guinness and black.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not opposed. But my point was, again, he says he's cutting those people out because he's willing to go the extra mile to make those sacrifices. You know, cutting people out of his life like that because he's so zoned in on fighting, and that's why he may not be a champion now, but he certainly will be. And that's it's a good point you make about Jake like that, because that mindset of a champion is kind of a cliche saying these days, but it still holds very true. It completely does, because if you put in the graft and you put in the hours or the reps, as you like to say, you're gonna get the rewards out of it. And
for sure,
I think we will see that in the flyweight division, because he's got a long road ahead of him, and I think hopefully it will be a prosperous journey.
Yeah, the first time I ever saw him, it was before his UFC debut, and I literally thought then, I was fairly newish in the sport, but I thought then, this guy's training and intensity is insane. It is everything about fighting. There's not a minute which isn't really geared towards fighting, and even just when I was with him, he spent the morning sparring. Then he went to Renegade for pads and one-to-one striking. And then he went to the gym and did a 13-mile run.
That's wild, bro.
And this was all in a day. And he'd done that run with ease and with a smile on his face and at a very good pace. And his strength and conditioning, which I have to shout out as well, because the strength and conditioning behind the likes of Jake Hadley and behind the likes of Leon Edwards, I mean, these are some incredibly well-conditioned athletes. And I have to shout out, again, it goes to show the talent that we've got in the UK and the Midlands especially as well. And it's an incredible team behind him. So I'm super excited for that. But yeah, let's dice through a couple of the ones we've got in this
I will
one.
shoot you.
Shoot him at me, I'll give you some thoughts.
Bahamondes versus Ludovic Klein.
Absolutely buzzing for this. Bahamondes, one of my favourite fighters to watch since I came into the sport. One of the first fighters I saw because of Dana White's Contender Series. Spinning kick against Roosevelt Roberts, who obviously we're seeing on Tough is a very good fighter.
Wild.
And fought a lot of good guys as well, Bahamondes. So, yeah, really excited for him. And I think
it's just a good fight.
Now he's adding in his grappling. He's dangerous, but Ludwig Klein's a difficult puzzle, so not easy.
Very good challenge.
Not easy.
It's like a perfect fight for both guys. It's the step up for both of them, so it's a good scrap. One I'm really excited for. Don't know too much about his opponent. Maybe that makes me a bit more of a casual, but Diego Lopez in his second fight. I don't know too much about Gavin Tucker, but you might. Maybe I've probably watched him fight. The thing is, you miss a lot of these guys because there's so many of them. Even though I've probably seen them fight, but I wanted to just touch on Diego Lopez because of how impressive he looked against. Was it short notice against Evloev?
Yeah,
which is and he did really well. You know, even had Evloev in trouble after a couple of submission attempts in a couple of moments in that fight. Looked really good, young guy. You know. So I think he'll put on a really good show. I'm really excited to watch him fight because if he's able to do that against Evloev in his debut, he's so experienced and so right at that top precipice of the division. You know that's very impressive. So I'm eager. I'm not sure if you can fill me in too much on Gavin here.
You are eager, and the man that is his nemesis is Egate, because Gavin Tucker is the person who got buzzsawed through in about 10 seconds flat by Dan Egate.
Oh no! Is he? Okay, all right.
Starched him. But Gavin Tucker,
I have seen
although a slightly forgotten name, is also again slightly forgotten at featherweight, but a legitimately very dangerous opponent. He came in, I believe, undefeated or with a very good record into the UFC.
He's only 13-2.
Yeah, he's a very skilled striker and he hits very hard. And we've seen Diego Lopez eat a shot. So if he does get caught, there is every chance that Gavin Tucker could put him away. Or I was going to say tuck him away until I realised that would sound like a terrible intentional joke, which it wasn't. Diego Lopez has Justin Bieber hair from 2013, but very slick
I'm not sure about the
jiu-jitsu,
trim.
extremely slick jiu-jitsu. And we look at it on the scales, and he almost has such good MMA and jiu-jitsu skills that can counterbalance him having Justin Bieber hair from 2013. But he is legitimately very, very good, and obviously the coach for some of the highest skilled.
Who is it? Yes, no, I saw him in the corner. No? Who was it? Say again, sir?
It's not Alexa Grasser?
Yes. Yeah, that's it. I knew it. Yeah, I could remember. I saw him in the corner. I was like, that's Lopez. What's he doing?
He's a star now, by the way.
Yeah, he is a bit, isn't he?
People love him.
He got a lot of traction. He got a lot of traction from that fight. I mean, everyone loves an underdog, don't they? Everyone loves something like that, even if
and they
it's
love
a Rocky
loss.
moment, isn't it?
They love a loss more than they love a win. Weirdly, sometimes fans.
Yeah.
They love a close loss more than they love a close win. If he won that close win, I don't think people were talking about him.
No, I actually agree with you.
You've seen it, right? We've seen it too many times. If people are listening thinking we sound crazy, maybe you don't read as many comments as we do. That's how it works. I'm telling you, in MMA, people actually react better to a close loss than they do a close win.
I will actually I wanted to throw this fight at you because I think he's one of the most underrated guys in the sport, and I know we get a bit hyperbolic and use that phrase quite a lot, but no one talks about him, man.
It's an intense
no one talks about him, but it's
Hold on, let me guess.
Third fight. Yeah, go for it. No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Good shout though. Very good shout.
I didn't know who was going to say. Go on.
Kennedy and Njoku, this guy. Oh my word! I don't know if you watched his last fight.
Is that a rhetorical question?
Jacobs, I think it was. I don't know. He just absolutely it wasn't that long ago. He
Lost
is one
Jacoby.
of the. Was it Jacoby? No, he's fighting Jacoby. Sorry. Yeah, he's fighting Jacoby. He thought I could.
We watched too many fights. I don't know. It's fine.
Yeah,
unless I've got the card in front of me. We watched too many fights.
Devin Clark. Devin Clark.
Who we fought. Yeah. Devin Clark's tough, man. That guy does not.
Yeah, no, exactly. But if you watch this guy, he's one of the scariest dudes.
No, for sure.
And he only really came on my radar a few months ago, and he's been in the game for quite a while. But he's 12-3, just coming off of. I think he's on a 2-fight winning streak now.
He's good.
Scary.
Yeah, he's good.
Scary guy. He's terrifying.
Yeah.
Really good hands, and I'm so excited to watch him fight because I actually think he can go really far. I think he's just on the fringes of the top 15 now. I think he can go really far because he's still pretty young. I'm very excited to watch him fight. I'm very excited.
The elbows.
Oh, yes.
And the uppercuts.
Yes,
that's the tale of this
Definitely
tape.
the elbows.
So when you go in and you watch Dustin Jacoby and Kennedy Nzechukwu, you can expect two things. Uppercuts and elbows from Kennedy. And we're very likely to see that. And it's going to be an interesting test, this, for both men, because Dustin Jacoby is an exceptional kickboxer. Of course, is often referenced. He fought Alex Pereira. Great kickboxer, refining his skills into MMA as well. And it's going to be a stand-up battle. This is absolutely 100% how it's going to play out. I don't want to hear it any other way. Potentially, Dustin Jacoby gets a takedown. I'm not too sure on that one. But when this stays standing, this is going to be interesting because Kennedy's obviously got the range. He's very tricky. He hits super hard with those long levers. But Dustin Jacoby's a little bit tricky. He's got a little bit of a weird rhythm, a little bit of a weird pop. Hits hard, and he's a game opponent. And it's going to be interesting as a purely kickboxing fight if it stands as this, because Dustin Jacoby's got a lot of high-level experience. And although I feel like Kennedy's a little bit more, is more devastating, I don't know. I think Kennedy and Njoku, I think is a good point because I think he's dangerous and I think he's a really big problem.
I mean, I'm going to actually throw you with a prediction at this. I want to hear what you've got.
Submission.
No. I've got what for Kennedy?
Yeah.
That's a good shout actually. I can see a standing guillotine.
Wow.
That's what I could see. Something like that, maybe. I think.
What, against the cage, bodywork and uppercuts?
Yeah. John Jones, Machida-esque. Thing is, I think he's gonna make it dirty because he works really well in those close ranges. As you said with the elbows, he can make a fight dirty, and he's good at that kickboxing range too.
Yeah,
but against a guy like Jacoby, he's gonna get in there, close that gap. That's what he did against Clark really well. Just bullied him against the fence. Was absolutely laying into him. I could see that happening again. Elbows. Maybe Jacoby ducks, just trying to get out of the way of those shots. Gives up his neck. Maybe
do that.
Standing guillotine. I could see that. So you say submission. You might have just. I might be going your way now. I think I might have to agree with you.
I do see sometimes when you watch Dustin Jacoby fight, you can see sometimes he falls into patterns or sort of rhythms. And I just think if he falls into a rhythm where potentially he leans his head off on sort of right on one of his steps continuously, and Kennedy just gets a read on that, or maybe if it dips even for a level change that isn't set up because he's got hurt a little bit possibly, or maybe a knee up the middle's hurt him, then I think that could be a little bit of a problem. So just watch out for that because sometimes in the pocket, I don't think Dustin Jacoby's as technically sound as Kennedy's going to be.
Yeah.
And I think...
I don't think he's as strong either.
I think all the way out, I think it's going to be probably just favour Dustin Jacoby a little bit. But I think all the way in, I think Kennedy's going to take over. I think the knees from like a Muay Thai clinch, the elbows.
Oh, I think it's the Thai, just the Muay Thai experience.
Because
I think
you've got that leverage, right? And when you're really snapping on that, like with a nasty Thai clinch, and you've just got those tight elbows, and he's just dragging you onto these knees.
Scary stuff.
Standing guillotine's not a bad shout, really. Like knees just crumpling in and just sinking one in.
I'm gonna go with the TKO against the cage. Maybe just unloads on shots him and he just falls to one knee and then ref calls it off.
I'm saying modified guillotine.
Yeah, I completely can see that too. I'm gonna go with it different to make it interesting though. I'm gonna go with just slightly different. So if I'm right and you're wrong, I can rub it in your face.
I felt like Ben. What's his name? What's Dodgeball? What's the gym? Not Robo Gym. Know. What's the gym? You got Average Joe's. You've seen Dodgeball, right?
Nah, man. I'm sorry. Don't look at that. Don't look at me like that.
You've never seen.
Is it a comedy? Because I'm not huge on comedies, man. I'm not. There's very few comedy films I like, except from like Hot Fuzz and.
I don't know how to react.
Hot Fuzz is masterful. But
I'm a little bit speechless.
I'm not huge on comedies.
You've never seen.
Nah, man. I'm sorry.
You have to watch Dodgeball this evening. I know the film. You have to. It's literally a cult classic. A cult classic. It is the true underdog story. That's its slogan. It's a true underdog story.
Okay. I think I know. I think I know the film. It's got that actor in it. I can't remember his name. But
Jesus,
I know that sounds bad if I don't know. But I feel. I think I'm either thinking of a film that's not it, or is it?
Flabbergasted. A couple that I just want to rattle off actually, because there's a couple of skillful guys on the card that we have to mention. Almabayev, who was on Dana White's, I believe, who's 17-2, is super skilled. He's fighting Ode Osborne, who's again on that precipice of the flyweight rankings and titles, and a couple of wins away here and there.
Just Charles Johnson,
just sort of floating in weird positions. A couple of wins, good wins, and all of a sudden he's probably in the sniffing around a title picture again.
In that conversation,
Sean Woodson, I actually was very excited for.
He frustrated me in that fight,
but super frustrating. How frustrating was it?
Who was it against?
I can't remember. But he kept
I'll fact check
knocking him out. But Sean Woodson is a good boxer.
Saldana, and it went to a draw.
But he didn't look very good in his last fight. His boxing didn't look as crisp, but it may have even been at elevation. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that. But watch out for the straight 1-2s, because he's got crazy reach, Sean Woodson. But he does have good. He does have good striking. A great fight that we have to mention: Billy Quarantillo v Damon Jackson.
Gotta love Billy.
That is an outrageous matchup to have on the prelims of a fight night. Billy Quarantillo, Damon Jackson is a potential pay-per-view main event. That is a legitimately higher level featherweight matchup.
I agree. It's a good fight. I ain't got much to say. I like Billy Quarantillo.
No,
so
nothing really to say. Another thing to say: Kyler Phillips, Rani Barcelos. Flipping hell, this card,
it's a good
man.
Fight night, isn't it? Yeah.
This card, I know these aren't, in terms of glamorous names, a lot of these aren't going to ring off the page at a lot of guys. But people like Kyler Phillips and Ryan
He's legit, man. He's very legit.
Is a flipping high skilled. Hey, this is no joke of a bantamweight match. If you see a bantamweight fight on a card,
it's a banger.
It's a banger. That's the point we need to make. No, legitimately, it's kind of crazy. Ignacio Bahamundes, obviously a great Scaptio Lopez. We've done that. Tanner Bossa v Kmart. I don't actually know a lot about Kmart. I'll be very transparent, but Tanner Bossa, I do like a light heavyweight. Because he was never a heavyweight, in truth, never. And then just to finish up really on this card, we've got again 2 great fights to finish. Jessica Andrade, Tatiana Suarez. Flipping hell, this is a flipping great fight.
Card.
This card's better than last night. This card's better than last night in totality.
I agree. Yeah, for a hardcore fan, yeah, absolutely.
UFC Fight Night, Sandhagen vs Rob Font, is a better card in regards to depth than UFC 291. Come at me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm completely with you. It's rare that we disagree, you know.
I want to disagree. I was buzzing to disagree earlier.
I was gonna ask you about this. I think what we should do for next week, maybe. I think we should touch on the fights, and I think we should do a hot takes. I think you should put some. You should put something out on your Instagram, and I'll do something out on my community post.
Go on.
Let's get the hottest takes, and we can just start debating them.
To be
honest,
that's
a good idea for a one-off.
I can do that, and I can also go on Twitter, because I see some hot ones on Twitter. I'll tell you what, there's some absolutely outrageous ones.
It'll be good to get them from our own community, though.
Yeah,
as well.
no, of course. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
All right, yeah.
We'll always go for our community. Just can't drive Tatiana Suarez. What do you see about that? Because obviously Tatiana Suarez for the longest time has been just
out of the game, but she just came back, didn't she? So I'll throw you just an early prediction.
Again.
Yeah, a bit quite soon, isn't it? She just lost to Yan Xiaonan, which was I actually picked.
She just got knocked out.
Yeah, it was a brilliant shot. Yeah, you're right. It's quite quick coming back from that. So I'm interested to see how that goes. I'm still picking Suarez. I think she's still got so much to prove. I think she's gonna. She wins this, she's in the title picture.
For sure.
She wins. I think she gets a shot, maybe.
Yeah.
Again, I don't. For those who aren't in the know, because she has been at the game for quite a while. She's got really, really good grappling pedigree. One of the best in the division. That's the reason she's undefeated, is because of how good her grappling is. And there was a lot of question marks coming around her return.
Dealt with it well.
Who she came against?
It was a tough opponent, but it was it Miranda Maverick?
I can look.
It was at a different weight class, I remember.
De La Rosa.
I don't know why I've got Miranda Maverick.
So not like the hardest challenge, but it's a good way to get back in. And she got the sub. So Jessica Andrade is a huge step up, but Andrade, it's a good matchup for her, I think, because Andrade has struggled with grapplers in the past. I mean, like, no shame in losing to Shevchenko, but she got out grappled a lot in that fight, partly because vintage. That's just vintage.
We could see that again. You give me your prediction for Tatiana Suarez and Jessica Andrade.
I'm going with. I said the grappling, just natural progression of grappling positions. Tatiana's very good at position control, and she works her way to the sub really efficiently.
Good point.
I can see an arm triangle, actually. I think the top pressure she's got really good top pressure. So against a smaller opponent like Andrade, I can see her just working, gradually progressing to mount, and then to the opposite side for side control to finish the arm triangle. Maybe finishing in mount, actually. But yeah, I definitely an arm triangle win, maybe round two. Round one, even, actually. I'm going to change it. Round one. Round one arm triangle. Yeah.
Yeah, I also see it going a little bit of a similar way. I think Tatiana Suarez's grappling is just going to be a little bit too much for Jessica Andrade in terms of the physicality. I think she's going to be able to beat her to every position on the ground. I think we're going to see it where she's probably going to have her near a cage or have her back against the cage, so she can't really sweep, get up, or submit. And then she's going to work in maybe a side control, chip away, and possibly even get to a point where she can get to a crucifix position. We've seen Jessica Andrade obviously in that position before, and I think Tatiana Suarez is probably going to work somewhere like that. And I think she could get an aggressive ground and pound finish. I can see something like that, and her really getting a dominant big win and stating her name. Because I think Jessica Andrade is probably going to come out with a point to prove. If she's made any adjustments, which I'm not sure she would have because it's such a short period of time since she last fought and got knocked out, I think potentially she's going to come in with too much emotion. I think she's going to fight too emotional. I think she's going to throw big hooks to try and get Tatiana Suarez out early and try and establish her dominance early because she's undefeated. She probably hasn't had that much adversity before. She's going to come out hot. I think Tatiana Suarez is going to read a telegraphed hook, duck under, go single body lock takedown. I think she's going to get into side control. I think she's going to elbow her face off. And if she doesn't take an armbar or take her back for a rear naked, I think she's going to ground and pound stop her.
Yeah, it's a good call. What round? What round are you talking?
The first.
First, yeah. I think the grappling is just too
much.
But
it could very well go to a decision and sort of play out like that. But Jessica Andrade is typically in finishes.
I think she'll get the takedown early and she'll have enough time to work to get the sub because she's too good not to get the sub. And if she can get the takedown early, she can have maybe like 3.5 minutes to work, positional. She's not as much of an offensive threat striking wise on the mat, but she's very good at, again, as I said, very good at working those submissions just gradually. So yeah, I could actually see a Kimura as well. I could definitely see that happening. If she
Everything's on the table.
Control. Yeah, I mean, yeah, with her, anything's on the table. I just think I'm trying to envision what I would more likely, I think, would see. And the arm triangle just keeps coming to me, so that's what I'm going to go with. Yeah, round one arm triangle. So with that, I think we've got to jump into the main event, though, because that is an absolute cracker. I think one man who, out of those two, really gets a little bit too much disrespect is Rob Font, because he is one of the most game guys there is. Crazy chin, too. Just will not get put away. Yeah, I love this matchup. The fact I almost prefer it to the original one. As much as I would love to see Umar Nurmagomedov,
I don't.
you know, have a point to prove. But I like that scrap. I get what you're saying because I want Umar to. It's a good
I
step,
know how
massive
good
step
Rob
up
Font
for
is.
Umar.
I don't know how good Umar is.
Yeah, that's fair. In terms of just a raw scrap, though, I want Rob Font versus Sandhagen is just fireworks.
No,
Even just Sandhagen, man.
Don't get me
Even
wrong.
just Sandhagen on his own because
Ginger
he's
jelly.
so. Yeah,
I call Sandhagen ginger jelly.
it's a good one. He's just so exciting. He's so
Yeah, no,
exciting,
he is.
bro. Like,
No, for sure.
You look at just the wins and even the losses. It's wild. That Peter Yan fight for the interim belt, crazy
Close
pace.
as well. Argue
Yeah,
he
very
wins
close.
that. Argue he wins
And
that.
the knockout over Frankie Edgar.
More
Oh
close,
my
huh?
word! I remember
Yeah.
watching that live. Just sent him just frozen in time with that knee. And again, Frankie Edgar, you know, barely finished throughout his whole career until the latter stages, you know. And, you know, granted he lost to Sterling as well, but he's come leaps and bounds and he's so good. And again, against Chito Vera, who's an absolute killer, his volume was unbelievable. Didn't slow down for 5 rounds. You know, everyone was expecting Chito to really grow into that fight, but he just didn't. Sandhagen put his foot down from the first minute and just kept going, and he did not stop, and he absolutely dominated that fight. And that's no easy task against a guy like Chito. So very excited for this matchup. I think he beats Rob convincingly. That's what as you will say, you know how good Font is. I agree. I think Sandhagen's a much better fighter. I think he wins. But there's a very good chance we see an absolute scrap because Font is durable as hell. So it's a fun fight, and again, that's why we watch, really, isn't it? It's a fun fight.
The thing that I like to think of when I think of Corey Sandhagen is not only Ginger Jelly, which I like to call him, which I just think is a perfect fitting fighting name for him, but he is absolutely must-see TV because he has every skill set in the toolbox, and he really does demonstrate it. He's an exceptional example for how longer and taller fighters should fight in regards to showing the knee, showing the attacks up the middle. We've seen how devastating he can be on numerous occasions. We've seen how good his footwork is, moving laterally, going forward and going backwards with such a diversity of attacks. And then he's beginning to add the wrinkle to his game where he's adding his grappling and offensive takedowns to show a different look. So now he's just giving different looks to his striking, which is already given a million, and he's becoming a real puzzle. And you go back and watch that Song Yadong fight, and Song Yadong's one of the most terrifying contenders in the division or in the UFC, bar none. That guy's absolutely electric. And we're starting to see an evolution in Corey Sandhagen, not only mentally, if you hear about him talk about his mental side of his game is elevating, but also physically. And what I really like about Corey Sandhagen is not only is he coming into his prime, he's got a ton of 5-round experience, he's got a ton of high-level experience, championship fights, everything within his favour. He also says to people when they say he's crazy for taking the Umar fight, I know that's not the one we're saying, but he said, I don't want to fight for the title if I'm not the best in the world. Now, you can look at that from a Sean O'Malley view, which he said, that's terrible marketing, which of course it is.
Of course,
but it's a mindset that does say about Corey Sandhagen, he has every intention to be the purest, best bantamweight in the world. And of course, it's easy to paint the narrative of the Aljamain Sterling fight, but let's be honest, in a million fights, that doesn't happen 10 times out of 10, right? And of course, that fight could look very much the same, but it could look very different. And Corey Sandhagen's a different entity now. And when we have a look at the bantamweight division, we have to factor him into everything because he's got the striking, but also offensively, he's grappling. He's got great submissions from anywhere. He's got a really dangerous active guard, which he can throw up triangles and submissions and arm bars and omoplatas and anything he likes.
Everything.
But he's also got devastating elbows from the bottom as well. He's got one of the
diverse.
He's got one of the nastiest guards you'll see in MMA. Legitimately, his elbows from bottom are horrible. I don't think Rob Font's going to be able to get him down. And I just think this is going to stay a stand-in battle. And I think that Corey's got more skills in his striking belt than Rob Font has. Rob Font's an exceptional boxer, obviously coming from the New York cartel. They do a great job there. Fantastic team of boxing. Calvin Kattar, of course.
Yeah.
An amazing jab, an amazing 1-2, really nice fundamentals. But I think that when it comes to mixed martial arts and a full array of attacks, and although Rob Font has got a nice kicking game, I just think Corey's got a little bit more everywhere it goes in terms of being devastating.
That goes for most guys against Corey.
I think it goes for
when you
every.
Corey really is one of the most he's got every trick.
Maybe
and it's not
every
a lot.
guy.
It's crazy, isn't it? His skill set is wild. How good he is. I think I know what you said about being an example of a long rangey fighter. I think and I completely agree. I think he's one of those guys that, especially against Rob Font, he's going to utilize that completely. Use that jab, bit of a rangefinder, set up those body kicks. I think could be huge for him. And then maybe set up high as well. I think he's going to throw all sorts at him. Maybe catch him with a straight down the middle. I think he'll get a finish in the second round. Maybe something like a spinning elbow or something crazy that Font doesn't see, that drops him and maybe finishes him with ground and pound. But I can't see a way this goes anywhere other than a finish on the feet in the second round.
Well, really, I would say as well,
rounds,
you mentioned there about the spinning attacks. That is one thing that Corey Sandhagen's actually done really well, I personally think, since the TJ Dillashaw fight. Because that fight was a little bit frustrating as a fan of Corey, because he threw so many spinning attacks that he just gave up a lot of control. And he didn't necessarily lose that fight on damage or getting outworked. He done all the damage and he outworked TJ in a lot of spaces, but the control was the main factor. And that came a lot of times because he was throwing a lot of spin attacks. And I like the fact that now he's just refined that a little bit more. And he's now using it in a controlled way where it's only when necessary and when applicable. And one thing that we have to mention just before we get to our decisions is the conditioning of Corey Sandhagen is always just absolutely impeccable. Of course, trains at Fight Team Elevation, is training in the Rockies, in the mountains, sorry. So he's fighting at elevation, and then when you have a look at all of that, it makes Corey Sandhagen a seriously dangerous puzzle for absolutely everyone. And of course, even Aljamain Sterling, if he hangs around and has to fight him, he won't think, even though he's confident with that, he won't think that's the easiest fight in the world because of the evolution of his game. I want to push you to a decision.
Yeah, round two. I think it's got to be I can see a finish on the feet. Just drops him, stuns him, doesn't put him out. He won't put him out cold because Rob Font's a bit too durable for that. But I can see him catching. Honestly, I could see something like a spinning elbow. I really can. A spinning back fist, maybe, actually. Just something unorthodox that Font doesn't see, because I think Font's defensively disciplined enough to deal with those traditional attacks. But I can see, at the end of a combo, something flashy. Because again, I know we said he toned it down, but Sandhagen can still bring that to the table. I can see, a spinning back fist maybe in the second round. Just that catches him, then finishes him with ground and pound.
The way I see this going is Corey Sandhagen potentially timing the entry of Rob Font, putting something down the middle, whether it's a patented knee, an uppercut, something like that, a kick. I think he's going to be able to get him against the cage. And when Corey's got people cornered off, he's got such fantastic footwork and boxing and IQ. I think he's going to just change levels with his attacks. He's going to bring his guard up. He's going to go to the body. He's going to touch the body and then go heavy up top. And I think we'll even see something like a knee into the solar plexus. And again, I think he's going to be able to just unload enough shots where maybe the ref looks at it and just says, you know what, there's 20 unanswered shots there. Potentially, I think Rob Font's as game as they come and he's going to fight till the dying end. I just think that he's going to be able to get Rob Font going backwards once or twice and just have a little bit too much time and accuracy on a few of these shots and just be very deadly. So I'm going to go. Good call. I'm going to go fourth round TKO.
Fourth round? You think it's going to go that long?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Rob Font's tough.
I'm seeing it early. He is tough, I know.
And he's not. And Corey knows he can go 5 and will be comfortable. And I don't think he's going to take unnecessary risk because I think he's going to probably be winning the fight most of the time. So I think he's always going to be ahead on the score. So I don't think he's going to take crazy risk early. But then again, he could just do absolutely anything. Really, he could.
Yeah, that's fair. I'll go with the second round. Yeah, either way, it's going to be a banger. I think it's a shame. It is a shame we don't get Umar, but I'm sure. I think that was almost a bit of an undeserved step up that quickly. So I didn't like that matchup in the first place in terms of a ranking basis. As a fight, I think it's good, but ranking basis, I think Umar, as good as he looks and the hype he has, he deserves a little bit. I think he deserves a guy with a little bit less credibility and name value. So I'm not too mad about it.
Well, anyway, we've got this absolute scrap, and this one's going to be fun. This card is stacked, so if you don't know, definitely get to know. And that concludes us for Casuals Encounters episode 9. Next week will be the double digits, and we'll be coming at you with 10 straight episodes. So, as always, keep an eye out for us on YouTube and Spotify every Monday. It's Casuals Encounters podcast. Leo Cooper MMA on YouTube and Instagram, where you'll also find the clips, and then my own channel, Casuals Corner MMA, where you'll also find the clips and spot on predictions. And it's just so happened now I've only got the spot on predictions. Yeah, and Spotify. And Spotify, of course. Not on.
Never forget, we got to plug it.
As always, take care. Thank you for tuning in. Peace.